It makes me sad that this is almost over. Oh my God, I have enjoyed this so much. There's one more episode. So let's get into this one. And I'm like, come on through, Cookie. I want to put my soapbox. That's basically it. Let's talk about drag and all its forms. What, Hey guys, thanks so much for clicking on the video. This is episode 7 of Feud, Joan, Bette, and Joan. And like I said, I'm really sad that this is almost over, but it is what it is. This has been wonderful. Ryan Murphy, you have done a fantastic job on this, I'm telling you. Anyway, so let's go to we're at the hotel. They're in Baton Rouge. They're filming Hush Hush Sweet Charlotte. And the cast well, a lot of the castmates, were basically over in Betty's room, just chopping it up, having a real good time. Joan's over there being a bitch. She's being a bitch. So she could have went on over there and party too if she wanted to, but she's just so busy in that mode of being a hater. And the thing is, she's doing a wonderful job. Like she hasn't been on the booze or any of that. She is doing some of her best acting that she's done in years, and it's being talked about on the set. So she was saying they've been over there all night. She's talking to Mama Cita, telling Mama Cita, yeah, they making all that noise. Said, I'm gonna call the front desk, just being a bitch. But meanwhile, they really were over there. They were kind of like laughing, but they were really giving her a prompt. She was like, how the fuck does she do that? How does she do that whole? Oh, she did the whole opening of the movie. If you've ever seen the movie Hush Hush Sweet Charlotte, it was a good scene, but she did the whole scene one take. Boom. Knocked it out. But see, Joan was fierce. Like, she's a fierce actress like that when she's not on the booze. It's the two B's, honey, that messes her up. Booze and bullshit. So that was what she's known for, and this is what she hasn't done in years. But they were basically really giving her props. So she said, I'm going to go over there myself, Mama City. I'm going to tell them about themselves. So she go over there. She get part of the way there. She hears them kind of talking about her, and it hurt her feelings. Hurt her feelings. She turned around and went on back and went to bed because her feelings was hurt. Just ridiculous. She just gets up in her own. She's a narcissist too, and then she gets all up in her own head. She's crazy. So, the one little guy who's the gay guy who is he's like Betty's gay son, basically. And he was telling her, he says, I don't know. He said, we teasing and stuff, but she really has the meteor role, by her playing the victim. You just pretty much handed that right to her, I was like, well, okay. And like they were saying, she's been doing some of her best work, this, that, thing, and the other. And she just kind of thought about it and was like, yeah, well, whatever. It is what it is. So I said, oh gosh, is Bette going to do something else to Joan? But she didn't have to. At this point, Joan literally didn't even realize, but she was playing self-saboteur to herself. We end up seeing this scene where Bette was talking and she's telling the little guy, she's reminiscing about. No, I'm sorry. She's talking to Bobby. And she told Bobby about overhearing Jack Warner after her first audition, and he was talking about her looks and saying, I wish she looked like Joan Crawford. This is when they were early in their career. She's only 22 years old. So she said, it dates back that far. We've been being put together this way against each other. And she's like, she's always had what I want. She wants the looks. She's like, what must that be like to walk in a room and be the most beautiful person in the room? You know what I mean? And that's basically where she's pretty jealous of her. Same thing. We had Mama Sita having a conversation with Joan And Joan was talking about, has talked about how talented Bette is, how Bette just fucking shuts shit down. She shuts it down. Bette is the more talented of the actresses. So it's so funny. They should have been the best of friends because they both had what the other one wanted. Instead of being jealous of each other, they should have been the best of friends and had a million movies together. Honey, that would have been a special treat for all of us, honey. That would have been something. Can you imagine if they actually got along, what they could have produced over the years? Then again, maybe it wouldn't have worked. The chemistry may not have worked if they actually liked each other. I don't know, but it just seemed like a waste of two lives. You know what I mean? And I definitely know that they probably could have been really good friends, though. You know what I mean? They could have leaned on each other as far as being two women. They probably could have really had much happier lives, the two of them. But okay, I'm going too deep. I'm running down a rabbit hole, as my friend's random TV review says. But anyway, I don't know. It's kind of sad when you really think about it. So the next day, they're up on the plantation, actually filming, and Joan's killing it again as usual, and she ends up going to she said, I'm done with my scene. And she's like, I can sit down and give you some notes or whatever. She's being halfway decent. And Betty's like, no, just go find you someplace cool to lay down. Because she was saying, I can see you're, really spent. And it's the heat and everything. She says, go ahead and find some cool, dark place and lay down. So she ends up going to her trailer. Well, some kind of a way, they ended up getting left up on the plantation. And it truly wasn't on purpose. The whole cast and crew were gone. And Mamacita and her are just in all that heat and shit. And then she's all half drunk at this time. By this time, she just started drinking. Up there, got left up on the plantation. She come over there and knock on that door, baby, and starts going off on Bette and telling Bette, you did this. You did it on purpose. We had to call a city cab to get us from up at that plantation. How dare you? I was like, boy, yeah, I can see being pissed off. When they looked around, baby, there was nobody there. You know how big a plantation is? Child, and you look at it's dark and ain't nobody there? Child, bye. So they headed out right there. There was really nothing that Bette could say to soothe that. And Bette said to her, Betty's always the one that would actually break into decent conversation and not the argument. She would always make the way for them to have the conversation that they needed to have. And it's driven me crazy watching this. It's like, it's right there. The opportunity to reconcile is right there in front of y'all's faces, and y'all just can't get to it. But Bette would always be the one to open the door. But Bette said, how does it feel to be the most beautiful girl in the world? And Joan turned around and looked at her and said, it feels wonderful. And I said, oh, I thought she'd being real smart. And she said, but it's never enough. And she went to go walk away, and then she turned around and she said to Bette, how does it feel to be the most talented girl in the world? And she said, it's great, but never enough. It's right there. Right there. The chance to reconcile. The chance to actually know that you all really do understand each other. It's right there in front of y'all's face. She turned around and walked away. I was like, oh, this is crazy. So, they end up having some more battles back and forth, and it was like power struggles about, because of course, at this time, Bette is the producer. She's the producer on the movie, and Joan she wants whatever Bette has. So she's still going through all this. So then she goes into this whole thing of now she's going to fake illness to push the studio to, just to fuck shit up, basically. So she's holding up production. And she faked the illness for 12 days. The studio came in and they're like, hey, if you can't get her back to work, we're going to shut production. We'll cut production, period, on this movie. So, because Joan was just pissed off. So, Bobby visited Joan, and it was a different Bobby. See, because this is a different Bobby. This is Bobby doesn't been, he's in the midst of divorce. He's basically happy. He's screwing around with Bette, and he's has stuck it to, and is sticking it to Jack Warner. He's in a very good place with himself personally and his career, because he was falling apart there for a minute about that divorce, but he's in a good place. And it's a different Bobby that showed up. Baby, he basically cussed Joan's ass out and told her, get your ass back to work tomorrow at 9 o'clock. And if you don't, shit's going to be cracking. I said, okay. So let's jump over for a minute. In the midst of all that, BD has now approached Bette and told her she wants to marry this 29-year-old man. She ain't but 16. She need Bette to sign it. Betty's in the midst of doing what she's doing. Bette not gonna let you shake her. She's one of them old girls. You're not gonna shake me, bitch. I wouldn't give a goddamn what you roll through here with. She was never gonna let BD see her stroke, okay? She was in the midst of one conversation about the movie and the business and all that shit. She told BD, she's like, I ain't signing nothing. Anybody got no time for that. This, that, thing, and the other. Go on somewhere and sit down. She didn't even let it. Go on somewhere, child. Go on, little girl. And next thing you know, she ends up being in a conversation with the guy, and she ends up telling her, you're going to ruin your life. You're going to look back on this. You're going to thank me for not signing and this, that, thing, and the other. And she said, we're just going to wait, and then in 2 years, I'm going to go. She's like, he ain't the right one for you. This, that, thing, and the other. Well, in the end, Bette was going on. Bette had a conversation with Bobby. He was telling her about the way that she does with BD. He said, because he was shocked. Like, how do you just have these conversations and you just dismissed her like that? Like, are you kidding me? That's not good. Like, Bette, that ain't effective parenting. So she kind of listened to that and was like, yeah, maybe I'm about to fuck this one up. So she listened. And she ended up talking to BD, and she said, okay, no problem. She signed. And then you start seeing them doing the preparations for the wedding and everything. And they're going through all of it, and they're going back and forth. And then, at this point, BD's really smiling herself as she's smiling her puss, honey. And she starts going back and forth with Bette, and Betty's asking her, I need your input for this. And she's like, you don't need my input because it's not even about me. All of this is not about me. This is about you. I don't give a shit about all this wedding shit. I don't care about the napkins. I don't give a damn about the flowers and none of that. This is all about you. It is not about me. And she's like, what do you mean? What do you mean this is not about you? But again, now see, that's here. I'm going to get on my soapbox. Some parents are very much that way. Joan was very much that way. But Bette just had a different way of approaching things. And she had a different way of holding her girl. You know what I mean? So it's just her style of parenting. And I'm not one really to say your style of parenting is different than my style of parenting, so you're wrong. I'm not that person. I respect, as long as you're not like harming your children physically or anything like that. If you parent different than I'm not going to tell you you're wrong. You just parent different than I do. And that's kind of what I saw. Bette had a different way of parenting. And it's funny because even with my mom is a more silent dictator. She's not a huggy, kissy. I can't even sit here and tell you one time that I've hugged my mother. I can't, 45 years old, and I can't recall one time of actually embracing my mother. And you all know I love my mother to death. But that's her style of parenting. Now, out of that, a lot of the financial stuff and different things like that, I do, like my kids come first no matter what. All of that comes from my mother. But I am much more of a hands-on, person with my kids. I was very approachable. Um, shit, it didn't make no difference. They could climb all over me, sit on top of my damn head, and all of that. That I was more that person with my children. My kids, very stern, very very stern. I'm very stern, very strict. Where I've run into that with people, you're too strict on them. There, yeah. You go to your house to do what you're doing. Let me do what I'm doing. Okay. That's why mine don't run around like those kids that you see on these reality shows that need the shit beat out of them. So I won't say that she was a bad parent. I kind of understood kind of where Betty was just different. She had a different way of doing it. She parented Beatty more like an adult. It was like she didn't have like this kitty role. Because it took me a minute. I was like, damn, she ain't but 16? Yeah, okay, I guess she is. She's 16. But she was like, she was treated like an adult. Very, very upfront. Very, it's this, and this. She was raised in a woman. She wasn't playing no games. So I seen where Betty was going. But Beatty didn't see it that way. She really felt as though everything Betty was doing was really all about her. It wasn't about her. Hey, okay, your feelings are your feelings. And Betty was I assure you, Beatty, it's not. It wasn't meant to be that way, honey. And she told her, well, it is for you, and you don't have to, you don't have to worry about it because I've already done something for me. I've already gotten married. The day after you signed the papers, I already got married. I went straight down to City Hall and I'm already married. So pick whatever flowers you want, pick whatever it is you want, because you're doing that for you. Now, me personally, at that point, that's where I would have I'd have whooped Beatty's ass. Now at that point, I'm telling you, why am I wasting my money and you done already got married? And why the fuck are you still living here? Now he done married you with his old ass. See, because that would have never went down. I would have never signed for my 16-year-old to marry no 29-year-old man, because a 29-year-old man ain't going to do nothing with a 16-year-old but conform her and raise her to his hand. Not gonna happen. Not with my 16-year-old. You will have to wait the 2 years and marry her then, and you're not gonna keep willy-nilly walking around here fucking my 16-year-old either. I blew his motherfucking brains out. But anyway, that's another time. Off my soapbox, but I'm boom, boom, bam, and I'm back. Let's move on. So that was that. But I'd have knocked the shit out of Beanie. So that was kind of like, ooh, that was kind of ugly. So that was going on over with Betty. Let's go on back to Joan. Joan is going back and forth. She's having all kind of problems, and she's playing sick. And all she's doing is playing sick. So of course, the studio says, "Listen, they had a meeting. You need to get back to work, baby. That's what you need to do. And if you're not going to get back to work, what's going to happen? We need to send you to see our doctor. You know how this goes, y'all. All you all with FMLA and shit like that. Y'all know how it goes. We're going to send you to see our doctor. And if he says that you're clear to go back to work, you're going to go back to work. If you don't go back to work, then we're going to sue you. Because we already did an event. Remember they did that large advance and all that shit? And she was back to living. We're going to sue the shit out of you. So she didn't believe it. She didn't believe it. She played her card, baby. She continued on playing sick. Went to the studio doctor. Had the nerve to try to seduce the doctor. Bitch, you 79 years old. Trying to seduce the doctor. He was giving, girl, wrinkle pussy is not on the goddamn menu, honey. I don't want any. And he paid her as dust. He cleared her to go back to work. She still refused. She's like, they can't finish the movie without me. We done filmed like 3/4 of the movie was filmed. She pushed everybody's hand. Then she even had the nerve to make the comment that no other actress is going to none of these actors, they all respect me. They're not going to willingly take money out of my mouth. So it is what it is. I got them right where I want them. Well, baby, they had called several people, and Joan knew about the couple people that they had actually approached. They were like, oh, Joan, oh, no. Well, there was one bitch who didn't really have a problem with it, okay? Didn't give a fuck. And it was Betty's good girlfriend, baby. Bobby called her up first. She's like, I ain't got time for that. I'm all right. I got time for it. Then he went and caught a train and 3 planes to get to her, baby. And walked up in her living room and told her, "This is what I need. This is what's going on." And baby, she said, "Oh, really, Joan? Yeah, I'll take the food out of her mouth. Not a problem." Miss Olivia de Havilland, baby, came back and she walked her ass right on up onto production, and they shot all the scenes again from the beginning, and they added Miss Olivia de Havilland, who was motherfucking flawless and Hush Hush We Sure. Okay, I was trying to figure out how that all worked, how Olivia de Havilland ended up being in that part, especially when they were showing how much of this movie that Joan had actually filmed. Baby, nobody was here for the bullshit. They sued the shit out of Joan, sued the shit out of her, baby. When they served her the paper shell, she was sitting there, and then they were sitting there, and she's like, "Whatever, they ain't gonna do it." Still not believing, baby. When they said it on the radio, that the gossip part, and they said Olivia de Havilland is filling in the place where Joan Crawford was filmed. Baby, she picked up a vase of flowers. She's at the hospital and threw them over by, Mama Sita was standing there and threw the shit over there by the window, and it hit the window. Mama Sita looked at her and she's like, "No, no, no." Mama Sita looked at her and she grabbed her little patent leather purse, baby, and put it up underneath her arm, honey, and went and looked at her, honey, and went toward the door. She said, "Mama Sita, where you?" She said, "I told you. The next time you throw something on my head, I leave. I'm leaving. You did this to yourself, Joan." She started out the door and she said, "Mama Sita, no!" And she jumped up out the bed, ran out in the hall. Baby, Mama Sita was getting it on down the hall with them little click-cluck shoes out of leaving out here. She's saying, "No, no, no." Standing in the door, child. Mama Sita didn't even look back at and told her, "Fuck you, bitch." And that's where it actually ended, honey. I said, "Oh my," this was a good episode. It really was. I was like, "Oh my gosh, honey." Yes, she did. Mama Sita told her, "Bitch, I told you, honey. Quit throwing shit at me, bitch. You fucking around playing games that ain't sick worth a damn." It was something else. So I'm going to be really interested to see how this is all going to wrap up next week. I don't know, but I'm really sad this is actually coming to an end. I have really enjoyed this, but I hope you all have too. Yeah, leave it in the comments. All right, guys, I'll talk to you guys later. We'll be together next week for the last one of this. All right.